This is Maik Taylor, and you're listening to the Fulham Focus podcast.
Fulham.
Right, yes, I'm joined by Morgan Calton to talk about one of my favourite goalkeepers and probably one of my favourite players to ever play for Fulham. It's Ireland's number one, Maik Taylor, who joined the club from Southampton in November 1997, all those years ago. Morgs, what did you think when he signed? Because it was around the time of massive change for the club, both on and off the field, with Al Fayed coming in a few months earlier, sacking our beloved Mickey Adams, installing Kevin Keegan and Ray Wilkins, and then dismantling a very popular team who'd just been promoted overnight to be replaced by players from a higher level across the board, really. So, yeah, what did you make of it when we brought in Maik Taylor?
Well, I think it was such a crazy time when it happened. I mean, it was kind of, everything was moving at 1,000 miles an hour, and we brought in Andre Arendse that summer, and that was kind of seen as an exciting signing because he was a South African international, and I was thinking, hang on a minute, this is serious business. You kind of at the time being a sort of fairly naive 13-year-old, I thought, if someone plays international football, they must be really good. I don't think Andre Arendse quite fit that mould, but he was certainly an improvement on Mark Walton, sort of in all fairness to him. But then when we brought Maik in, I was really excited because I'd seen him play quite a bit for Southampton. And I think I'd seen him play for Barnet after they signed him for a few £100 at the Army or something, whatever it was. And when he signed, I was like, this is a really cool signing. I'm really looking forward to seeing him play. And the rest is history, as they say. He did not let us down once. I don't think. Obviously every keeper makes a mistake, but I can't remember a real blatant error from him in the whole time he was there. Maybe looking through rose-tinted glasses at that, but when he joined, I think it was just sort of like, this is just another piece of this very exciting puzzle that's coming together.
Yeah, I wasn't overly excited, but I was really disappointed that all those players that had served us so well the previous season were being done away with one by one. We brought in Coleman, we brought in Pesh, Paul Trollope, Alan Nielsen. And like you say, Andre Arendse came. We weren't renowned for having a lot of international players back in those days. But from memory, I don't think Arendse really broke into the team. I think Mark Walton was in goal for the start of that season. I
don't know. Did he get injured or something, or he was away on international duty? He never quite got in there. And I think when we signed him, I think it was just like there was this level of expectation that he was going to be really good and step straight in. But I remember him playing in a friendly, I think against Spurs or Charlton or something like that. And then kind of came in and out every now and then after that.
Yeah. Well, I remember we're here to talk about Maik Taylor, but Andre Arendse went to Oxford afterwards, and they used to call him Andre Horrendous. So that's the sort of player that we're talking about there. But when Maik Taylor signed, I think it was in a massive period of transition, and results weren't particularly brilliant at that time whilst the team was put together. And I think we'd had a draw with Brentford at home. Mind you, we never beat Brentford at home at the moment, do we? And we'd had some poor results. And I think I remember the enclosure, which is now the Johnny Haynes stand, singing, "We are shit, we are bad, give us back the team we had." And I remember I was talking to my dad at the time, and we decided, for some reason that's unbeknown to me now, but we decided that the best goalkeeper that we could have got at that time was Andy Woodman, who was the Northampton goalkeeper. And it was based purely on the fact that he was a Fulham supporter. Egged on by my dad, I wrote to Kevin Keegan and I said, "This is the guy you want. Never mind that Maik Taylor guy you just signed. You want Andy Woodman from Northampton. Go and get him." And he wrote back, or his secretary wrote back, and he signed the bottom of the letter, which I've still got somewhere. He wrote back and he said, "Thanks for all your support. Whilst I disagree with you on this one, blah, 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 blah." And of course, he was right. Maik Taylor turned out to be a brilliant goalkeeper, and as per usual, I was wrong. But yeah, so we've mentioned Andre Arendse, but Maik Taylor was definitely on a different level to anybody that we had. we were in Division 2 at the time, and which was the equivalent to League 1. And having a player of Maik Taylor's calibre at that level, I guess we were very lucky to have him.
Yeah, as well, I think, the fee was, what, 700 grand for him, which for a goalkeeper, back then was a lot. And, we signed, I can't remember, have we signed Cookie before then? I can't remember.
I don't think we had, or maybe just after.
So we'd broken the £1 million mark by then, but, obviously still 700k was still quite a lot, considering I think our record signing before was probably around 100k or something. And I think we just sold Duncan Jupp for 200,000. That was kind of seen as big money back then. So it was like all this money being splashed out.
That's a name I haven't heard for years.
Duncan Jupp. Yeah, and you didn't really hear much about him after that either.
No,
bit of a shame for him. But it was sort of coming down, and I think one of the things that was so instantly recognisable about Taylor was the fact that he looked like an old man. From the moment, he hasn't aged, I don't think, and I don't think he ever looked young. He's just like this, this hardened ex-army bloke who sort of and played a bit like it as well. There was no bullshit. It was just no fuss. Just that's how he was.
Yeah, he was brilliant. I really liked him, and I'm sure Mike, if you're listening, you'll really appreciate the fact that you've just been called an old man, and you've always looked like an old man. But how you doing, Mike?
But you haven't aged, so I mean that's a good thing.
Yeah. There's a compliment somewhere in there, I think. Yeah. So Mike was our number one as we achieved 2 promotions in 3 seasons, culminating with promotion to the top flight for the first time in my lifetime. Both promotions massed over 100 points. Which of those 2 promotions were your favourites? So we're talking the Keegan one or the Tigana one.
I mean, obviously, they were both amazing. They both had their own sort of, great points to it. I think sort of from my point of view, obviously, I'd never seen Fulham in the Premier League. I certainly hadn't seen them in Division 1 as it was then. I think it was under Keegan, under Tigana as well, we'd had really poor preceding seasons. So it was quite sort of, it was refreshing football each time, either Keegan or Tigana came in. I think the season we went up under Keegan, it was a novelty about it being so good. I mean, obviously under Mickey Adams in Division 3, when we'd gone up, I was a little bit younger. I was still sort of like, getting used to sort of watching football full time. I think it was, with all these new players, they started to gel. We were just playing really great football. And I think looking at that, I don't know, it's hard to say which was best, but I think, the fact that we went up from Div 2 with over 100 points was sort of like, that first time that we realised that we were, could potentially be a big club. When we were in Div 1 and under Ghana and went up with over 100 points, by the time we actually went up, and even during that season, we weren't seen as a underdog anymore. Even when we played like Premier League teams in the cup, we were seen as kind of almost one of the big boys because we're one of the original clubs under foreign ownership with a lot of money at our disposal. So it was almost like we were this massive fish in a small pond. Whereas in Div 2, we were still kind of like, okay, they're spending a lot of money, but they're still a lower league side. So I would say, whereas going up under Tigana was seen as expected, going up under Keegan, whilst wasn't relatively expected, it was still very novel. So to answer your question, the long and short of it, I think going up from Div 2 was kind of the more exciting at the time. Going up Div 1 was just like, right, we've got there now.
I think I understand what you mean. The season we went.
I don't know. I was going on for a long time, so I mean, yeah,
we got there eventually.
I knew what I
meant. When we came up from the 3rd division under Mickey Adams, there was no expectation in that season whatsoever, which is why that season will always be my favourite season. The season when we went up with Keegan, we were just spending a lot of money, and we just had a really good time on the way up. I remember just going everywhere and singing "You'll Never Play Us Again," and really pissing off the locals at all the away games from just being really arrogant and obnoxious about this team that we were really fortunate to have. And it was back in the days when you turned up expecting to win. As we did with the Tigana season, obviously the Tigana season, we were a better team and we had some phenomenal players at our disposal. Sahar, Boa Morte, Barry Hales, Lee Clark, Sean Davis, just to name but a few. If I was to pick, I don't know. I know Danny always says that middle promotion under Keegan is like the forgotten season. And I kind of understand what he means, because when I think about my favourite seasons, I guess I do put them in order of the Mickey Adams one, then probably the Tigana one, and then the Keegan one, but then the European one's in there as well. But yeah, so again, long story short, I think I'd go for the other one, and I'd say the Tigana season for me.
I think one of the other things with the Keegan season, I think we had so many great cup games that year as well, which was certainly live, long in the memory. Obviously, we had Villa away, we had Spurs at home when we beat them 3-1 in the League Cup, and then there was Southampton away where we drew, but obviously we won the replay. I think obviously losing to United, when we probably should have got a draw in that game if John Solarco could have scored from 3 yards out. Yeah. But I think maybe sort of the fact we had those memorable cup games maybe makes it stand out a bit more. I think the end of the season as well, when it was Keegan's last game and he sort of got booed from by the hammy end, it was all quite emotional. Yeah, exactly. And I was like, it's a bit silly then, considering what had happened. But I think, I think both those seasons are incredibly memorable. It's a bit hard to pick which was better, though.
Yeah. I was going to come back to the point you made right at the very beginning, actually, talking about cup games, where you said you can't remember any mistakes that you made. But I remember we played Spurs in that first season, the Ray Wilkins season, at White Hart Lane. Yeah. And I think they beat us 3-1, I think. And one of the Spurs goals, bounced back off the post, and Taylor's gone to scoop it back in towards his body and completely mishandled the ball. It's just bounced back off his hand and went in the goal. So that is the only mistake I can remember him making. Yeah,
he's allowed that. It was 3-1. If it had been 2-1, it might have been a bit more of a thing. But I remember being at that game as well, and it was just kind of. I think we'd got in sort of like with a bit of expectation, and we were fairly humble, I think, in that one. It's like, okay, maybe they are a bit of a step up.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. Plus, it happened in a season which was a write-off anyway when we got beat.
Both those Bracewell and the Wilkins seasons were so boring. I mean, we played some absolute dross at times, but.
They were, but they kind of paved the way for what was to come. So you take the rough with the smooth, don't you?
Obviously, under Bracewell, when we kept a lot of clean sheets, just never scored. So I mean, obviously, I think we're looking hearing that he's kept more clean sheets than anyone of Fulham players, hasn't he?
Anyone since. Yeah, including the likes of Van der Sar and Schwarzer, But those 0-0, that 0-0 run kind of before and after Christmas in that season under Bracewell, probably
4 games, I think.
I don't know. I know there were a lot.
And it kept on going and going.
Really, really dull, wasn't it? But anyway, these things happen. All right, so pretty much all the while, Mike was our number one. We were a very attacking side, but he still played a massive part in some of the best times I can remember as a Fulham fan. Do you have any standout memories or saves in particular that you remember?
Yeah, I think there was one that's always stuck in my mind, and that was we played Wolves at Molineux in our promotion season. The Tigana promotion season, and there was a shot or a header or something that just scooped up over Taylor's head, and he sort of arched his back, diving back, and managed to get his fingertips and flick it over the crossbar. Yeah, for some reason that one in particular stuck in my head. And then I was having a little bit of a YouTube highlights watch today, and there was the one against Spurs in the League Cup from Chris Perry that it was basically a point blank header which he kept out. And against Villa, and it reminded me sort of having when we were up there in the FA Cup match that in the second half, obviously they lay siege to our goal, and he was just there, sort of like knocking everything away. And it was it's games like that. Cup games, you may say they're less important, but some of those performances, he really got up there for the big ones. But at the same time, it's just like he was just one of those keepers that was so solid and so consistent. That, whilst I can't remember, a lot of individual saves, there was just, even when he was called upon when Van der Sar got injured in our first season in the Premiership, he just didn't let us down. And I think if a keeper can be memorable by not making mistakes, I think that's kind of a big deal as well.
We'd give something for that now, wouldn't we? Right. These days, you build a good team around. You say you build a good team around a good defence, but the goalkeeper is equally as important. And you take somebody like him for granted, I think, because although he might not have much to do in the game. Like you say, that save where he's tipped the ball over the crossbar, he did something similar against Bolton, I think, that season as well. And yeah, you just take those moments for granted, but they're the moments where he really earns his money.
I think it was one of those things as well. The fact that he had been in the army, he had learnt probably to command an area from sort of, how he'd been trained. And he did. You could see him shouting at his defence. He properly marshalled them. And that is something that we just do not see anymore. Obviously there we have had keepers that can do it, but I mean, none of our sort of batch at the moment are particularly good at it. And that's, you kind of feel like, all the shot stopping, crossing, positioning training, they should spend sort of a good sort of half an hour each day on learning how to shout at each other. So it's kind of like, maybe I'd be quite interested to see how he is as a coach, because I know he went to Walsall for a bit.
Yeah, well, he was at Northern Ireland as well, wasn't he, up until earlier in the year? But I think he may still be at Walsall now as goalkeeper coach.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I didn't know if he'd left or gone on to one of the sort of slightly big clubs. But yeah, he would. I can imagine he'd be a great coach. But yeah, we'll see.
Maybe
he might end up back here sometime. I mean, I know he's a Hampshire boy.
Yeah, he is.
Before he moved to Germany, but he so you kind of imagine he'd probably end up somewhere around there. But maybe he's got friends up at in the Midlands as well. Yeah,
well, he spent a long time at Birmingham. We'll come on to his spell at Birmingham in a minute. Birmingham are opponents this weekend. But I was just going to say one other thing about Maik Taylor in terms of confidence. I was always confident, like with a one-on-one, if there was a shot coming in, I would always think maybe he'll save it. Whereas these days, I think that looks like it's flying in the top corner. But one thing I was never really that confident with him about was penalties, and he didn't really have a great record for saving penalties. But then away at Charlton, 2002 maybe it was, the same game where we beat them 1-0 and Boa ended up with his shorts off and throwing them into the crowd at the end. But he did save. Maybe it was a Jason Ewell penalty when we were 1-0 up. So. He did save one.
I think the I seem to remember when we played Leicester in the cup and we drew 3-3, we went to penalties, and when we all missed all three of ours and they all went somewhere into sort of somewhere in the Midlands. I can't remember. Was it Tigana managing then? I think, or Bracewell was one of those.
I think it was Bracewell. That was the Bracewell season.
But he apparently, when he was going towards the goal, he said to someone, "I've never saved a penalty before." He proceeded not to save any of them. But I mean, he was like, I seem to remember Keegan said he was one of, if not the best catcher of a cross in England.
And that is such a big thing, because if you're a goal up and teams are attacking you and they put a corner into the box or they're sticking crosses into the box and he can just come and pluck the ball out of the air, completely takes the pressure off. But in this day and age, nobody does that. People just flap at it and punch at it. I mean, look at Rico last season, flapping away at everything that came his way.
Can you imagine them? Can you imagine Maik Taylor trying to coach Sergio Rico into how to catch a ball?
To catch it, for God's sake. Bloody idiot.
So perfect catch of a cross, but just don't ask him to save a penalty. No one's perfect.
Exactly. All right, well, he did leave and he went on loan to Birmingham and played 27 times for them in the 2003-04 season, and then joined them permanently and going on to play another 187 times for them. The most notable game to us Fulham fans that he played for Birmingham was when he was in goal when Fulham beat Birmingham in the penultimate match of the 07-08 Great Escape season. What are your memories of that game?
I remember watching that in the middle of the night in Sydney. And I remember by that point, it was kind of becoming very real that we could stay up. And I think, it was so stressful. And I remember bits of these games because I think they were sort of got to the point that it was a matter of just sort of resilience in watching as well as the players playing. So I think it was sort of, I think it was, just a matter of relief really that we were going into the last game with the potential to stay up rather than sort of overjoyed that we'd won. I think, there was just that sort of last bit of, we're getting there. We can do this. We've done the hard stuff. Now we just need to beat Portsmouth, which was, I think, that was it.
It's unusual for you, mate, for you to be out of the country when something good was happening at Fulham.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking forward to being out of the country next time. We might win the FA Cup or something.
In actual fact, I was away for that one. I was away with work. I was in San Francisco, and I was away with a Chelsea supporter, actually, and he was adamant he wanted to come and watch the game with me. So we got up really early, and I think it was something like, I don't know, 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning that we found this bar. And it was full of English people, and they had all the games on that day. So I think there was Tottenham were playing at Reading on one screen, and then our game was on another. And I just when McBride scored, I went mad. But when Netherlands scored that second one, and Maik Taylor's come out and he's put it into the bottom corner, I ended up on the other side of the bar on the floor. I wasn't even drinking. And of course Reading lost as well. So that set up a good old day, actually. In the end, it was really good. Well, just going back as well, one of the other things I used to really like about Mike was that he had a bit of a rapport with the fans. And I think I said earlier, I used to stand in the enclosure of the Johnny Haynes stand. And if we were winning at half time, we'd see Mikey, what's the score, as he was coming off for half time. And invariably, he'd hold up his index finger if we were 1-0 up or whatever. And one week we did it, and we were winning 1-0 at half time, and we ended up drawing 1-1. And then the next home game, we sung the same song because we were winning at half time, and he just looked over, smiled, and shook his head. I'm not doing that again. Brilliant.
I like players like that because you get it's the players who have they're sort of a bit more worldly. Especially back then. You're playing sort of for a Div 2 club. You're a bit more close to the fans. You wouldn't get that so much now with a sort of, overly paid Premier League footballer. It's players like that who just sort of, they're sensible. They know they have to have a bit of a laugh, and I think, it's easier for those kind of players to have a bit of rapport with the fans because they do feel pressure because they want to win and they're professionals and, they're, even at Div 2 level, they're still elite sportsmen, but they are in that position where they can go, all right, we can, I know you, you know me. Let's enjoy this as well.
Exactly. I used to really like that about him. Of course, when he did leave, the only man that could possibly replace him was Edwin van der Sar, who signed from Juventus. I found that a really bizarre signing at the time that we managed to get hold of van der Sar. But it was weird to think at that time that we had 2 of the best goalkeepers in the league.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think every Fulham fan was quite disappointed that Mike would definitely not be the number 1 the next season.
Yeah.
But obviously at the same time, that showed, made a statement of intent what we were planning to do in the Premier League. And I think it had been quite a quiet summer up to that point. And I think, I remember going up to Celtic Park for the friendly up there, and we hadn't signed anyone apart from Abdes Wadu. And we got turned over 3-0. It was like, hang on a minute, what's happened? Why haven't we signed everyone yet? And then, obviously, then the sort of the troops came in after that. But it was a bizarre signing because it was someone so well known. But
that's the thing, though, isn't it? Because we'd have been quite happy starting the season with Maik Taylor, the goalkeeper position.
Yeah, I mean, no one would have argued with that because he'd done so well before.
Exactly. But then you get somebody like Van der Sar come in, and you think, well, okay, he's better.
It's the thing. It's you've brought in Holland's number 1, and you're sort of just having to reread the article to make sure you actually read it right.
Yeah,
and exactly. I think everyone known he'd lost his place to Buffon coming in because obviously Buffon was the most expensive goalkeeper at the time. But even still, it was just like, okay, yeah, all right, I'm all right with this. But it was good, obviously Edwin had his injury during that season. Or was it the season after? I can't remember which. But he gave Mike a chance to play Premier League football for at least a decent run of games. So I think whilst we did replace him as number 1, I'm really glad that he did get to sort of play some part before he moved on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right. Well, Mike played 189 games for Fulham over a 6-year spell. Rate his Fulham career out of 10.
2 promotions, 2 record points tallies, 1 mistake in 180 games or something. I'm going to be nice. I'm going to give him a 10. I can't fault him. Really?
Yeah. I would give him a 10 as well. One of my favourite all-time players. And at Luton away in the FA Cup, God knows, I don't know what year it was, 1999 maybe. I think we beat them 3-0.
That was the last time we played them, wasn't it, or something? Before we've just
played
them.
Yeah. And I was down the front clapping the players as they came over, and he was chucking his gloves in. So I waved I don't know why. I was 18, 19 at the time. I don't know what I wanted with it, but I was waving my arms at him. And he chucked me his glove, so I got his glove, and I took it back to the next game that I went to and got to sign it. I've got it up in my loft somewhere, along with all those inflatables. Yeah, so that's quite. I'd say it's a prized possession, but it's all dried up and crispy now. But
no, I think you need to frame them. Frame them. Oh, they'll look good on the wall in the mandate.
It's only one, but it would do. But don't know. I don't really know how.
I think with that, sorry, Mike, for calling you old before your time, but at least give you 10 out of 10. So
yeah, exactly. Good stuff. Well, it's been a pleasure as always, mate. Let's pass it back to the main show.
Fulham.
Thank you very much, Frenchie, and thank you very much, Morgan, for that player focus. Now, I am here with Mr. Domm and Mr. Marty, and we are going to discuss Birmingham. Big game for Scott Parker. Hopefully he can rectify some issues. So let's just quickly have a little... Got some lovely stats here. Fulham have won 2 of the last 8 fixtures between Birmingham. We have drawn 2 and lost 4. Our last meeting was back in 6th of May 2018, a 3-1 win for Birmingham, which ended our unbeaten run, a win which could have given us automatic promotion. Fuck it. But we have only won twice against them, both home and away, since our first relegation back in 2014. Let me think. Recent former players of both clubs include David Stockdale, Kevin Fry, Dan Byrne, Papa Duba Diop, Maik Taylor, who they've just spoken about, and Sonny Aluko as well, actually. Yeah, I forgot about that. So anyway, let's just quickly have our thoughts of what we need to do for this game. Marty, how would you line up for this? Do you think it's time that MLM should actually potentially not be in this lineup, or we should have Steven Sessegnon on the right with Dennis Odoi on the left? What do you think Scott Parker will do to rectify the crap that was last weekend?
Anything could be better than last time. Yeah, I quite agree with you. I think Odoi and Session back in the team. Goalkeeper, flip a coin who's got the most confidence between the two of them. Don't have Bobby Reid as a winger. Bring Knockhart back at one side, Ivan on the other. And I would try to have Bobby Reid playing off Mitrovic. Try that, as a kind of a 4-4-2, 2 up front scenario. Just put away your chances. Try not to piss around with it at the back. That would be great.
What are your thoughts, Dom? How would you line up? Because he was saying, I think in the last episode, how you were unsure about, Dennis Odoi playing at left back. It's been a while since he was actually in that position.
Yeah, I don't want him to play there. I don't want Lamarchon to play there. So my options are running out. So, and I know you're not a fan of the starting with 3 at the back, but I think if Brian's out, I think that's what we have to go with. Bring Knockhart back in on the left flank and Cavallero, I guess, or Sessegnon on the right flank. And just, I think we need a bit more of an attacking threat down the flank than Lamarchon will provide us. So I'd go 3 at the back, and if you want to be really, really dangerous, do the 2 up front as well, and then 3 in the middle. I think that's the right amount of players. Kenny, Reid, and Johansson in the middle.
Yeah, and the 2 up front would be Mitro and Knockhart potentially, and maybe Cavallero as a
Mitro and Bobby Reid, I'd say.
Right, interesting.
Just we need to change it up now, and the Brian injury is obviously bad for us, but could potentially encourage a change of formation, and it might work. Who knows?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Marty? Do you think 3 at the back is a likely option Scott Parker might execute for this game?
Yeah, possibly, but hopefully it works out better than most times when we have 3 at the back. I mean, as I say, just sometimes we play 3 at the back, you think, oh, well, okay, we're going to push forward, create a lot, and if we don't. And then sometimes we have 3 at the back. As I say, we've got to be less predictable, because I think we said on the last podcast how we've become so predictable. So that's what I'm hoping.
Well, here's hoping to that. I mean, is there anyone, Marty, that you got your eye on that in the game? I mean, that you think could potentially cause us a bit of havoc, like how, for instance, we predicted that Jared Bowen would have done it the whole game last time.
You just seem to keep dropping that name when Matt Domm's on it. I can't imagine why.
Sorry, I just I couldn't help myself. Sorry.
Dan Crowder.
Am I invited to the wedding at least?
No.
Yeah, Dan Crowley is their obviously attacking midfielder. He's kind of key for everything that they do in that team, basically. And they've obviously got a Serbian as well, I think it's called Ivan Zajic, I think it is. So
yeah,
two of those in midfield. We've got to show more of a midfield like we did in the game before. Kearney was non-existent in the last game, so try to get Steph Joe on one of them. That should help.
Yeah, I mean, Ivan Savic, 2 points, 4 tackles per game. Harrison Reed is looking at averaging at 1.6, so it could be quite a little bit bitey. But Birmingham have always been a bit of a bogey team for us, especially in the old days, fairly old days of Gary Rowett. I mean, so have Hull. I mean, what do you think? Do you think we can potentially win this game, Mr. Domm, or do you think another banana skin is waiting to happen before the international break?
I think we need to win it.
Absolutely.
I mean, they've got, we discussed, they've got a few decent players in there. But honestly, if we've got any hopes of going up, we need to be winning games away against mid-table teams and the lower placed teams. They're nothing special really, and we're saying the same about Reading before we played them. I don't think they're particularly dangerous for the set of players that we've got. So we need to be winning it. I think we can. I'm interested to see the battle between Harley Dean and Mitrovic, actually, because I think Harley Dean's a bit of a nasty bastard. Mitrovic is seen by other clubs as a bit of a nasty bastard. So that could be a good battle if we've seen him do in the past. If Mitrovic can, completely win that physical battle against him, then he could have a good day. That's what I'll be interested to see. But we certainly can, and we certainly should be winning it, really.
Well, we said that about Middlesbrough. We said that about Stoke. It's funny. I mean, the only time we've really shown off our quality, really just seen like, oh, okay, this is a sort of championship potentially winning team, was against a 10-man Reading and a really crap Millwall. And I'm worried that, if we draw or lose this game, I honestly do think it could be curtains for Parker. I don't you guys think they'll be allowed a bit more time, but to not win against Birmingham, who are 12th, I mean, we can't even really beat sort of mid-table sides at the moment. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Marty?
Well, just look at the teams that we've lost to. I mean, how many times have you looked and thought, we've lost to Stoke? And then Stoke obviously go out and lose the next few games after, and you think, and we lost to that team. Middlesbrough, we had them, due be a goalkeeper being sent off, also down near at the bottom. It's just, it becomes beggars belief. Like when we looked at the fixtures going into the international break, most people were saying, if we get 10, I'll be happy. And unfortunately, we're not anywhere near that, unfortunately. And we just seem to be dropping points. As I say, you said, we've beaten Millwall and we've beaten Reading, and that's the only time we've actually opened the team up and actually been really good at the back as well. So, that's what we need to do. Score more goals and tighten our ship at the back. But will that ever happen? I have no idea. We still don't know a settled 11 yet. So who knows?
Yeah. I think they're going to be completely hull us and just have a really good tight defence. Harley Dean, their centre-back, has played all games this season, 1.4 tackles per game, 2.3 interception, and he's been at Birmingham for 3 years now after signing from Brentford. But, there's a lot of... I'm just fascinated to see what happens in this game, purely because Birmingham have won... Let me get this straight. Hold on. Have won 5 out of 7 home games, and they've just now won 3 home games on the bounce. I personally, I don't know. I don't want to be too negative, so I'll go to one of you guys first. What is your score prediction, Mr. Domm?
I think it's going to be another kind of, after we're all down and it's got a bit doom and gloom, I think we're going to pull off a good win again, and then probably after that, maybe not win for a few games. So I think Parker will buy himself some time with a 3-1 win.
3-1 win.
We might not end up in the long run being the best result for us if we don't kick on from it. But I think we'll take this one.
And Marty, so what are your score predictions? And I'm just going to give you something that Scott Parker said after the Hull game. He said, "Today is probably the one day I sit here this season disappointed by the way we played, disappointed with the result and the way things panned out. ultimately, what will determine how successful I am personally, how successful this team is going to be moments like this. Cliched that it is, we've got to bounce back. So, what is your score prediction? And can you see this being the game that the players respond?
Well, my heart says 2-2 because I just feel like it's got that kind of game about it. But I do feel if they want to get something out of it, I feel like a 2-1 would probably be more, kind of a nervy 2-1, but we somehow get the points.
Yeah. All right then, 2-1. I'm gonna say 2-2. I'm gonna say 2-2 just because I'm I don't know, I feel a bit deflated at the moment. So we will see. All right, guys, thank you very much. Really good little quick preview there. And thank you very much to Mr. Domm. Thank you to Mr. Marty. And thank you to Lamette. And thank you to Morgan for doing their lovely little player focus on Maik Taylor. And we will see you very soon. All the best.
Fulham.